Hey everybody, this is Carlos. Thanks for joining us. On today's show, we're going to be speaking with one of the best boa breeders out there, Tyler Johnson of Chroma Constrictors. We're going to talk about how he got involved in the boa game and his plans for the upcoming season. We're also going to talk about the sharp purple gene and the birth of the nebula boa. Finally, we're going to talk about tips on how to deal with difficult customers. Boa Rack Radio is on the air now. Welcome everybody to Boa Rack Radio. I'm your host, Carlos Rojas of Morphs Unlimited, and our guest co-host today is my friend Tyler Johnson of Chroma Constrictor. Tyler is one of the premier breeders on the East Coast, and he's known for producing top quality boas in the sharp MVPI gene, and specifically his integration of the European purple line. Tyler, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey man, how's everything going?
Good, dude. How's life treating you over there?
Well, it's pretty crazy in these trying times, but we're surviving, getting through, and staying positive.
Yeah, no, I feel you, man, with everybody, kind of hanging out at home, everybody working remote, nobody really going out and conducting business as much as they should all over the place, right?
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Kind of nice getting a break from everything, but I've been doing spending a lot of time with the animals, so that's kind of been nice.
Yeah, man. I've been doing the same thing too, and I'm, just enjoying everything. Right now I'm podcasting directly from my boa room right now, kind of surrounded by all these boa cages and stuff like that, and getting struck at by some of the hungry females as I'm walking by. But dude, for those who haven't had the chance to do business with you or know you, give them a little bit about your background. What got you interested in reptiles, and then also what kind of led you down the path of boas?
Well, I probably started with geckos actually when I was a little kid.
Oh, really?
I had a pretty big interest in, the different species of geckos, like gargoyles, and I had this one crocodile gecko that was really cool, and once I got my first boa, I really started migrating more towards boa constrictors, mainly red tails, and the different morphs. I had this really awesome reverse stripe when I was like 17, 18 years old, and man, just a gorgeous animal. I wish I still had her, honestly, but I moved across the country to Colorado and kind of started fresh there, and actually worked for Scales and Tails when I was about 20.
No
and
shit.
I was a retail shop employee, and got up to manager status, and then that was when I got offered an apprenticeship back home for a tattoo apprenticeship, and started getting my interest into doing artwork full time, and kind of put the reptiles on the back burner for a little while. I actually had a lot of animals at that time. I had a wild 4-foot Savannah monitor that was just so friendly. It was like a puppy dog. Just lots and lots of cool hobby kind of pets more than. Right. So I got pretty serious, and I ended up moving back to the East Coast and to do the tattoo apprenticeship.
And where are you? You're based out of Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, I grew up in northern Maryland, near the PA line, and eventually my wife, when I bumped into my wife and we got together, we moved across to the southern PA, right outside of Gettysburg.
Okay.
And it's nice. It's very farm country. It's the countryside. There's a lot of farm fields and rolling hills and stuff like that. It's real nice.
No, that's cool, man. So you mentioned that you did your apprenticeship in kind of tattoos. How did that kind of all go underway? Like, what got you interested in tattoos? What eventually led you to your apprenticeship? Who'd you apprentice under?
Yeah, so when I moved to Colorado, I moved in with a buddy of mine, and he was a part of a group of guys that were all tattoo enthusiasts and tattooers, and like a lot of them called themselves rod chuckers. They were into fixing cars and bikes and stuff like that, and they the one dude that I ended up rooming with was an apprentice at a shop in Golden, Colorado, and that's where I was living. And so I was like, man, if he could do this, I know I can draw pretty damn good, and I figured I could do it. So I actually started looking for an apprenticeship when I was out there, and I did find one, but the guy was pretty sketchy. And I came home for the holidays, and a buddy of mine that I had been getting tattooed by, and some friends that were in a band back here, they were getting tattooed by him, and he was a real good artist. I actually came home to visit over the holidays, and I was under the needle getting tattooed myself, and told him about my aspirations and want to go to possibly do an apprenticeship, and he told me to show him some of my drawings and prove that I had the skills that I had said that I had, and so he offered me the apprenticeship on the spot. He's like, he normally charged $4 or $5 grand for a spot, and he'd do half price for me since we had been buddies and I've been getting tattooed for a while. And so I ended up, and it was a real tough decision because I dropped everything I had going out there. I was snowboarding every day and working for a park and grooming jumps and just having a blast and kind of doing reptiles part-time. And I had to drop all that, and I sold my crotch rocket and sold my Jeep, and I had a lot of things I had to get rid of to
started ditching that West Coast living, man.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So I moved back and did my apprenticeship, and met my wife during that, which actually we went to high school together. So it's pretty cool that we bumped back into each other.
Did you guys actually know each other in high school, or?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We actually were kind of fond of each other, and awesome. we had other significant others, during school, and never had the chance to like do anything. But like our senior year, we were both dating other people, and we had this dance down in Baltimore, and man, her and I hung out all night and just danced, had a great time. And so it's wild that I was able to link back up with her, after moving across country and back. Right. And so then, I finished my apprenticeship. I tattooed at that shop. That was it in Glen Burnie, Maryland, under Norm Wright. And he's still a killer tattoo artist to this day, and we're lifelong friends. I see him a good bit, and he's definitely still good. I think we influence each other nowadays, which is pretty cool. So I left there, and actually I got to backtrack a little bit here because I'm missing a huge part of this story, and that's that during my apprenticeship I was only making my tips, like whatever I would make for helping people out, scrubbing their tubes, scrubbing the floors, scrubbing the toilet, doing all the stuff an apprentice should do. I would make some tips, but it was never more than like $100 a week. So I ended up sending Peter Call an email and said, hey man, he only lived 45 minutes from me, and I'd never been to his house, but I met him at a show. I met him at the Havre de Grace show years ago when I was, probably 16, 17, and he was an awesome dude. He's a lot like me. Him and I are really good friends, and we're into dirt bikes and living fast and having a good time. And so I sent him an email and I said, hey, are you looking for any work? And he called me that night at like 11:30 at night, and I'm downstairs at my girlfriend's parents' house and talking to Pete Call, and he had us over for dinner the next day. And then that was it, man. I started busting out. I worked for him 4 days a week, and he kind of.
So in a sense, you were like running dual apprenticeships, right?
I was, yeah. At the same time, I did that for over a year straight, and then I would work for Pete kind of on and off. Once I was actually tattooing full time, I couldn't, keep working for him full time, and he had a lot of different things going on too at that time. With kids, he has 2 kids, and then a lot of other things came about later with his wife and stuff like that. But but yeah, so I would go over and help him out and do like a weekend bender with him and knock out as much feeding and breeding as possible. And no, it was great. It was great. I met a lot of people through him. You know, Jeremy Stone and I became buddies from hanging out over at Pete's, and so him and I still communicate and talk boas and have a good time. I actually did a painting for Jeremy's son Jackson. For his prosthetic legs, so that he can turn them into tattoos, have like tattoo sleeves. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool meeting other cool people in this industry.
And I think Jackson goes to University of Arizona now, right?
Yep.
Like he's big now, dude, right?
Yeah. He's an awesome basketball player too, man. It's great watching him. It is. They came out here, Jeremy and Jackson came out and spent the day with me up here in Gettysburg, and I took them to the different monuments and showed them all around the battlefields and things like that. It was a really great time. I'm hoping that once Jackson gets out of school, he can come back out again. It'd be cool to see him all grown up.
Yeah, man. So let me ask you, dude. So what eventually led you kind of to start forming Chroma Constrictors, and kind of give us the background, the history, and an overview of Chroma Constrictors? Yeah,
so at the time when I was working for Pete, I didn't actually own a ton of boas. I maybe had probably about 24 at that time. I had a couple calls and a couple sunsets. I was big into sunsets for a while and early on, and kind of got out of them until now. I actually have a couple more that I'm really excited about. But when I was at Pete's, you know, I was watching what all his huge collection of boas, and he didn't have any sharps, which was really crazy. So he had calls, and a lot of het calls, and square tails, and he's big into square tails. Had a lot of beautiful square tails, which we don't see hardly anything of out there in the market right now, but I'm trying to revive that. But he didn't have any sharps, you know, and I was like, man, this is just so crazy. Like, I really want to see these sharps, you know, and I ended up getting a high contrast albino sharp in 2012, maybe 2013, and that was like what kind of did it for me, having this boa that's just really solid red tail. Was just like, wow. Like, because in the call strain, you just don't see that. There's some select lipsticks, and you know, you can really line breed and get that, but you don't get that really ridiculous red tail that stays with the snake through its life. So I kind of just thought, well, man, you know, if these guys can do this, I know how to do this. I've been doing it for years. I've been, you know, taking care of boas for years, and I was like, I really want to kind of have my own thing. And at the time in 2013, I was working for Harley Davidson. I got married earlier than that in 2011, and you know, kind of had to put tattooing on hold for a little bit because it wasn't a super serious income. I mean, I made okay money, but it was not on the books, and you know, you can't buy a house without that, or you can't start businesses without having money on the books that the bank can see. And so I had to get kind of a real job, and I was selling Harleys for a couple years, and I bought the house that I have my studio in. It's in the town of Littlestown, Pennsylvania, which is about 15 minutes outside of Gettysburg, and it's only about 5 minutes from my house, which is really cool.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah, my wife and I have a farm up the road, and my wife bought that or right before we got married, and I always used to get on her and say, you know, this is your crappy farm that you had to have and this kind of thing. But now, you know, that we have kids, and you know, we really take advantage of the farm, and we have horses too, and I hunt now, which is huge. I absolutely love bow hunting more than most things. And I have my own property and my neighbor's property. So like we really take a lot of advantage of what we have now. And I'm really I feel more blessed that we have a 12-acre farm, than maybe whatever I would have tried to get her to buy back when we were 21. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I mean, it's one of those things, like, especially when we're young, we don't necessarily know what's best, but it's nice when stuff like that ends up working out,
Yeah.
And that's cool. So are you sharing, so you guys managing the property for deer with your neighbors and stuff like that, kind of working?
It's only me, man. My next door
Nice.
neighbor has, yeah, he has an 18-acre nursery.
Right.
That, man, is my dream to own one day. I want to own, the whole thing, and run a nursery, a plant nursery, which is kind of a dream of mine as well. So I'm in really good with him, and he doesn't hunt, so I have all 18 acres. I got cams and stands and all kinds of stuff all over the place, and it's great. This is my second year. I got my first buck last year, and
Nice,
I couldn't be more excited for the fall, honestly. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that I've never hunted my whole life. My dad's a vegetarian, and doesn't really believe that you have to kill animals to eat, and so it's to each his own. And I love deer meat. I love steak and crab meat. I couldn't live without crabs, man. That's a Baltimore thing, but it's the truth. I absolutely love my seafood. So
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I actually, so I'm a huge bow hunter over here on my end. I'm like the
That's
stereotypical
awesome.
like Western bow hunter. I spot and stalk, chase stuff, and then like it's now progressed to the point where now I'm like taking deer with like my homemade bows, right?
Yeah,
So
more primitive.
yeah, no, I've gone. I got my like $2,500 Hoyts all the way down to like my handmade stuff that I try to get some with every year. But funny enough, dude, I actually found bow hunting because I went vegan for a while.
Wow.
So yeah, I just did it as an ethical thing, and then I missed meat, and I was like, well, if I'm going to start eating meat, I'm going to figure out the best way of doing it that I feel ethically, is the right way of doing it. So it started
Yeah.
with me with like grass-fed stuff, going out and buying, just purely grass-fed meat, to eventually discovering hunting, to the fact that like now I would say like 90% of all the protein consumption in my house is either meat that we've hunted for ourselves or fish that we've caught. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I definitely want to get to that point as well. I kind of kicking myself for not harvesting more deer this year, because I mean, I spent many days amongst them, and could have had a lot more in my freezer. I'm actually out right now, which stinks, getting ready to go into this whole
Especially
Corona
this
mess.
whole thing, right?
Yeah, it's unreal. I'm like, God, I'm kicking. I literally have like a bag of hamburger left.
That's funny, man.
But yeah, it's a wild thing. I grew up, out here, and all my friends hunted and fish. I did fish a little bit when I was younger, but never went out hunting. And I'm diehard for bow hunting. I don't even I thought about it this year, like going out for the first day of rifle season. I went out and heard all these gunshots all day long. I'm just like, man, these guys are just mowing them down. It just doesn't ring home the same way that just being out there with your bow and like blending in with nature. And
Well, the other thing is over there, man. There's a process. Obviously, you're spending time scouting, because most people, I think, have like the wrong impression of hunting, that you're just gonna show up there with your bow and your rifle and boom, you're gonna take a deer out. They don't understand, kind of like all those months of preparation, whether it's shooting your bow or going out, putting up cams, trying to figure out what the deer are doing in your property and everything like that. It's a lot of work, man. So kudos.
Yeah, and there's a science to it, and that's what I love about it is learning the patterns that they do, and really, spending a lot of time doing that. It's kind of like the genetic side of the boa breeding. It's very intricate, and there's a lot that you can do to succeed and excel, or you can just go out on the first day of rifle with your rifle, and I'm sure there's breeders that just throw boas together and hope that it works.
Yeah, no, exactly,
So same kind of deal. But
Well, dude, I'm glad to hear that, man. So consider this a standing invite. Whenever you're ready to start chasing some mule deer and some elk, hit me up, man. I'll
awesome,
host you at my place.
that would be incredible.
We can go chase those things. So, dude, let's kind of talk back a little bit about the boas and stuff like that. So you mentioned Pete Call. Were there any other guys that mentored you within the reptile community?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say I had any other mentors. You know, Pete, I learned a lot of the do's and the don'ts in the industry through him. You know, it kind of sucks. I wish I would have worked for him maybe 10 years earlier.
Right.
Because he was kind of out of it at that point. You know, he was caring more about spending time with his family and not really about snakes. Like he loves the snakes, he loves the genetics and all that, but it's the breeding aspect, the taking care of them, that whole thing. He had a crew, you know, and he wasn't attached to it anymore. So I wish that I could have seen him a little more in action. Not that I didn't. I mean, gosh, he wrangled these monster IMGs that are hissing and striking, and it's just watching the Matrix with Boas, you know. Watching his wife Amy, she was amazing down in the boa room. It was awesome. She was so good at handling large snakes and even the babies, you know. It was just, I learned a lot from both of them, and you know, Amy was very hands-on. She showed me a lot of the techniques and the things that I know now. Probing, things like that. So, yeah, it was a team effort. It wasn't just Pete. I learned a lot from Amy as well. God rest her soul. You know, she got in an accident there so that was a very trying time as well. I know it's still hitting Pete pretty hard even today, but yeah, so I learned a lot from them, and then I opened the shop, the tattoo shop in 2015, and the whole upstairs I dedicated to being reptiles, and now mainly strictly boas. I don't really do a whole lot. I was kind of branching off there, and I was going to start breeding Leachianus geckos because I really love them. But they're not as easy as boas, believe it or not. And I don't want to say that boas are easy, but to me they are, because I've learned it, and, you know, taking care of them and having the proper husbandry techniques down to a T is a lot different. And so breeding geckos and having a humidity difference and things like that, it just wasn't what I could see doing as a part-time business. You know, I am a hobby. I like doing boas as a hobby too, and I have a little hobby collection of boas at home that I don't really think about breeding as much. But then I do look at the boas as a business. You know, a lot of people are out there, you know, and want to instill these hobbyist laws into people, like saying that people overfeed and do this and do that. And, you know, when I look at it, I have a proper regimen, and my boas are real small compared to a lot of people's boas.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that.
I like to give them time and digest them, and then I like to fatten them up in the summertime. You know, in the summertime they eat. If the boa really is acting hungry, give it another meal, because it can take it, and it's wanting that. And especially if it's a female and you're getting ready to breed that season, then you want her to have some meat on her, and you want to have those nice big perfect healthy litters. So I really, you know, started out small. I had probably like 30 boas to begin with when I started breeding. And I struck out my first year of breeding, which I had, by the way, at Pete's, you know, we had been doing a lot of breeding. So, you know, I never had my own litters while I worked for Pete, actually. Right. Until I got some of the bigger females from him to start my collection. I hadn't had a lot of huge snakes or anything like that. So it wasn't until 2016 that I had my first successful pairing. 2017 was when I had my first purple litter. which was really kind of rewarding because I imported that snake in 2014. So, 3 years to get that male to breed, to breeding size. And I bred him to a hypo, a super hypo from Mike Weitzman that was 66% possible het BWC. So I was trying to make those pear glows, and at the time, they would have been world's first thing. So I was really excited about it. And the male actually, and this is something that's been really crazy, the male actually ended up proving out jungle, and a lot of the snakes that I imported over the years have ended up being jungles that came from Europe. And so I think that there's a lot of stuff going on over there that that they don't really know what they're looking at. You know what I mean? So
no, I'm with you, and we're seeing a bunch of different, not only European lines, whether it be the purples or whether it be like the Lindy line or of jungling, and a couple of the other proprietary kind of jungling lines that they were coming out here. I think they're barely investigating that on their own over there now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's just
only
it.
Now their eyes are becoming, I would say, only now it's a fact that a lot of European eyes are now looking for the more subtle indicators of morphs.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're essentially developing that and developing those specific lines out there. But there's a lot of good stuff. I suspect over the next 5 years, even crazier stuff's going to start coming out of Europe and infiltrating their way in the U.S. In a lot of ways, I think when it comes to color and patterning and boas, they might actually be ahead of us.
Yeah. Well, and I think that they mixed in some stuff. Well, I mean, it's hard to say because I've had many conversations with many, many breeders. I have a lot of good relationships with a lot of guys, Michael Roscoe, Thomas Cobb,
Yep.
and Richard Del Bono, all those guys. So we all have great relationships, and we love talking information and sharing information and amping each other up about our future projects and that kind of thing. But what I've heard is that there were some ridiculous purple sharps in the States from Anthony Thomas-Smith and
actually I think Mike Roscoe actually told me that when we were just talking on the phone a couple days ago.
Yeah, so where those boas ever went, I don't know, but I can guarantee that how Anthony got them was by mixing in something like a jungle or a Guyana or something that has this underlying pastel trait, because the original sharps didn't have any color. They were just very nice, contrasty, red tails. Yeah, clean, real clean. And so that when they got introduced with these other codoms, these other traits, things started happening, and I'm really intrigued by that. I really want to, break it down even further than I've even done already, which I haven't. I've only scratched the surface, honestly. Which is a lot to say because I have some ridiculously purple and blue looking snakes, but
oh yeah, you do, man.
But I'm just saying, man, compared to what is coming, they're not that crazy. Things are going to get really, really intense over the next few years. So, I mean, it's exciting. It's a very exciting time to be doing what we're doing. The IMG thing is pretty cool. That was a big time goal of mine, that I wanted to mix IMG and purple together. Now the purple gene isn't defined yet. We're still working on figuring out why it does what it does, and why you can have this really ridiculous purple snake as a baby, and after 2 years of growth, it starts really losing that purple and kind of changes to an orange or red color. And then you have a snake that isn't very colorful as a baby at all, and then ends up being a really intense blue or bluish purple snake as an adult. There's definitely some different traits that are adding to that mix. I think that there's probably some red pastel. I think that when you mix red and blue, you get purple, and the more amounts of these pastel traits that are involved in the snake, the more kind of muddy it's going to look. which I'm sure you've seen some of those photos from Europe where the guys have a snake and it's like solid maroon,
Oh
like,
yeah, no, especially stuff like coming out of like the Czech Republic and
Yep.
places like
Yep.
that.
Yeah, so these guys, some of those guys are definitely doing that and double dosing, triple dosing, quad dosing their snakes and really creating these intense colors. But nobody is stripping it down to the basics and then even taking it further to taking it back to normalcy, like non-albino. That's where I really want to go. I want to take it back to see what these snakes look like when they're just normal Colombians, or normal jungles or whatever's going to pop out. If you could take it back to normal Colombian, like could that be a different looking Colombian boa than we've ever seen? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. So, real quick, let's jump back kind of to your personal life. Tell me about a little bit about your hobbies outside of reptiles.
Yeah,
We
well,
briefly touched on bow hunting as one of them.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been a big thing. I mean, I honestly, I was a little selfish this year, and I shut my tattooing down sort of in the fall, in October and November, and I really focused on being out in the woods and doing things right, and making sure that I'm not spooking the deer and doing things that about it. It's just
definitely.
it's intense, and you got to make sure that you don't make the wrong moves, or you'll miss that opportunity that you might have had. So, and I definitely missed that opportunity.
Dude,
But
well, that's part of the game right there, man.
yeah, you live and you learn. I will not make the same mistake next year. No,
That's what you say now. You
Yeah,
know what's going to happen.
I'm going to make a different mistake. That's what I'm going to do.
Exactly, dude.
So I definitely do. I'm big into bow hunting, which is cool because there's a big time fitness thing that's involved with that as well.
Absolutely.
And you definitely got to be fit to be out there bow hunting. It's not like you could be sitting in a tree stand eating a sandwich, at 5:30 in the morning. It's wild. So I'm doing that, and my wife and I, we have some friends that we enjoy going camping with, which I love hiking and camping overnight and doing things like that out in wilderness. She's a little more. She likes the glamping. She likes having a shower and things like that for the kids, being able to wash the baby off in the tub. And I understand it, but I like sleeping in a hammock and enjoying nature more. But I like doing a lot of stuff like that. I like snowboarding and surfing, and we go to the beach every year. And I try to get as much of that in as possible. Out in New Jersey, there's some decent waves. If you watch the surf tracker, you can catch some good swells coming in. And I get to do a lot less of that these days with kids and things. But the older they get, the more they're going to get into stuff like that. And let's see, geez. Really, lately we just have been enjoying spending time with friends, old friends from high school. They have kids of the same age, and so we'll go and like have bonfires and just shoot the shit and talk. They're all hunters, so like it's really cool that we get to.
That's the new commonality now that you've joined into, huh?
Yeah, yep, yeah. Like it was a little, when I was growing up, I was always into extreme sports and stuff, and they were always hunters.
Right.
So I was quite the different breed back then, and not that I don't love that. I mountain bike and dirt bike a lot. That's how I just broke my shoulder 3 weeks ago, dirt biking, and if you're not riding hard, then you're not living, man. And that's how I think. That's how I think we're staying young. I'm gonna try to keep doing as much as I can to stay young and stay fit and take care of my body, eat right. That's a big thing, eating right and not stuffing my face full of all that junk food that we got out there these days. And that's a huge thing when it comes to taking care of your snakes, man. There's a lot of people out there. If you're not taking care of yourself, then what are your standards for your collection, and your husbandry practices for your right. So, if you look at Pete Call, man, he's fit. He's still fit, and he's in his 50s. He can go out there and fire up his dirt bike and rip around with the best of them. So, it's you can get in and work 30 hours in a hot, 78, 80 degree shop all day. And it takes a lot to be able to do that sometimes. So, yeah, man, I love it. I'm going to keep doing the things that I want to do. That's kind of been my whole premise ever since I started being in business for myself, was that, in this life, we should be able to do whatever we want to do.
All right, man. So tell me a little bit about Burn Slow Studios, how that kind of came together.
All right. Well, we, like I was saying earlier, my wife and I moved to PA, and I was working for Harley Davidson and ended up finding this amazing deal on this property. It's an old 1867 brick house in the town of Littlestown. And I went and... You still with me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I went ahead and put an offer in, and was able to get this place for a really killer price, and it's only 5 minutes from my house. So I had this dream to turn it into, my own private tattoo shop. So I ended up, I bought the place and refurbished it, turned it into kind of more of a studio vibe, like it's real homey. It's nice. Did a lot of interior. I got walnut on the walls. I like doing a lot of woodworking and building, and so we did some really cool stuff. I ended up found out that after I bought it, I ripped up the carpet, and there's a really beautiful white oak soldier step flooring that I refinished, and it just is kind of like a meant to be situation, you know what I mean? It just like all the pieces kept falling in place, and I'm not going to say it wasn't hard work, because it definitely was, and my dad was a big part in helping me do a lot of the renovations and things like that. So we built the place, and I actually got back into tattooing full time. I left Harley Davidson at really the right time. Harley kind of started selling out, and I was really kind of not as with the company as I was earlier on. Right. And once Harley started producing parts in China, I was just like, man, I can't get behind it anymore. But right, I have a really awesome Harley. It's a first year Fat Boy. It's a really cool collector's bike, and it's kind of got some really cool heritage. But I don't know. I don't ride anymore. I got kids now, and it's just a whole different thing. It's tucked away.
Man, I was able to ride up until my oldest was like 15, 16, but I had her super young, right? Because I had my daughter when I was 18.
Yeah. And
then eventually, when my younger ones started growing up, I was riding kind of a scary ass chopper, I would say.
Yeah.
Super like old school 70s style.
Yeah. Hardtail.
Oh. No front brakes.
Brutal.
When I would hit a turn too fast, my front tire would skip. You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
So eventually, I decided had to put that behind me. So I'm with you on that.
Well, and I was before I started working for Harley, I actually worked for an import or a European and Japanese manufacturer, and was selling crotch rockets and four wheelers and dirt bikes and stuff like that. And I was always on a crotch rocket, usually a Gixxer 1000 or something.
I used to have a Gixxer 1000 too, man.
Yeah, and they were, I was living fast. That's how I got to my my apprenticeships and over to Pete's house a bunch. I would fly and just living by the seat of my pants at the age of 21. And
dude, I think that's a lot of us, brother.
Yep.
I was doing the same exact thing.
I mean, you gotta learn. Luckily, I didn't fall and I didn't die, and all those crazy things that could have happened. That you now look back, 10 years ago, and you're like, man, I can't believe that I did that.
Well, I think you might have been smarter than me, because I actually ate shit on the Yoko Highway in Japan.
Ooh,
on my Gixxer. And yeah, dude, I was going fast.
Wow.
Luckily, I was full leather. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Full leather,
oh yeah.
Helmet. So I came out of it okay. Little beat up.
That's good. That's real good.
Yeah.
Well, so I put that, riding now. Like I said, I live 5 minutes away, and
Now you ride
the
the horse
commute.
in the shop.
No, I actually I do drive a lot because I have my children, so I
Right,
have to either
right.
get them to a babysitter or get my kid to school or whatever. But I take a road bike. When it's warmer out, I'll road bike to and from, and just to get some exercise in during the day. Because
Yeah, no, for
when
sure.
you're a tattoo artist, you sit in a chair all day, and there's not a whole lot of exercising going on with that. It's pretty brutal. So
So
being
let me
able to
ask
go
you.
out.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, dude. Like, what motivated you to kind of start pursuing art as a career? Like, were you always an artistic kid, and then just things fell
Yeah.
into place, or how did that all
hmm
work?
Yeah. When I was a kid, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say I wasn't like an artsy kid. I was always into drawing and intrigued in art class and things like that, and I always did well. My dad is an architect, so
Oh, mine too.
he
That's funny.
yeah he can draw pretty dang well and freehand at that, pulling straight lines with no ruler. And um, so that was always something that I was into. And um, a lot of my friends growing up, I think drew covers for the yearbooks in school and did things like that, but I was never like in the art class doing extracurricular activities or anything like that. I played football and lacrosse, and you know what I mean. Like I was a very active student
Right.
and doing sports and things like that. And then after I'd get done at school, I'd go and snowboard and work it. I worked at the local ski resort for 5 years, and snowboarding and doing that kind of thing. So I was constantly active. But once I became a tattoo artist, it was like, man, all that stuff slowed down because then you're sitting in a chair all day focusing on artwork. Um, and I'm a kind of all over the place artist. Like I have many paintings that I've started and not finished, and I have lots of projects like that. I got into carving tobacco pipes out of wood.
Hmm.
I would import the briar from Italy and Greece and do it the right way. And I bought all these awesome tools, and my wife was always pissed at me for buying and lathes and sanding tables. And so
Right.
I have a pipe workshop at my house that's just abandoned. Um, so it's a wild thing. This whole like artistic mind that I have. I love throwing pottery and doing pottery. I'm big into bonsais and bonsai pots. I collect really rare pieces of bonsai pottery from Japan and ancient China, stuff like that. It's kind of my 401k. Compared to some other people, they put their money in stocks and things like that, and I have bonsai pots that are worth more than cars. And
Right.
that's something I'm like, 100-year-old pot that's made better than most artists could make a pot these days. You know what I mean?
Right. No,
It's
I'm with you.
it's a lost art form, and I want to definitely dive deeper into those kinds of things. I want
So,
to.
what do you think attracts you to that? Do you think it's just like the high level of attention to detail that was required to kind of produce that stuff?
Yeah, definitely. The skill, the craftsmanship. I really enjoy craftsmanship of all forms. Whether it's designing a pot or designing a tree and growing a tree in a certain form, or building a building a guitar, or even a house. I absolutely love drawing houses. It's ironic that my dad's an architect, but I did when I was in school. I loved sketching out like different views of a house that I would want to live in one day. And I think that definitely has um, a spot in kind of goes hand in hand with this with the snakes, because I feel like I'm creating this beautiful work of art, but it's living. It's an
Right.
animal.
But you're seeing
Um,
it through like an artist's perspective, which I
correct.
think is
Yeah.
super unique, especially
Yeah.
in our
And,
industry.
and I'm so like I feel like I'm just it's definitely more about doing something that somebody else hasn't ever done. That's been kind of like a goal of mine my whole life. I felt like, growing up, my older brother always used to copy me and follow in the things that I was doing, and I always wanted to be doing something different than everybody else. You know what I mean? I wanted to go and kind of make my own path and find my own way to do it, but not even so much find my own way to do it as to just do something totally different,
Right.
you know, than the way that everybody else is doing things, or they're thinking. And you know, that kind of innovation is really what intrigues me the most.
So let me ask you this. Obviously, you're looking at boas with an artist's eyes, and you're creating, just like when you create a boa through very specific breedings, whether the result works out or not, it's permanent. So in that sense, it's a lot like tattooing, right?
Yes.
And in the world of tattooing, obviously, you deal with all kinds of people, and you'll deal with, you know, the most higher echelons of society to the lower echelons of society, the most easygoing folks to the most neurotic folks. So
Yep.
tell us some stories and kind of some techniques that you've picked up through your career in tattooing, with how to deal with difficult customers that might be able to be applicable to the guys in the reptile community when they're dealing with difficult customers.
Yeah, and it goes hand in hand. It really does. You know, I mean, it's kind of any kind of retail out there. Luckily, it's not like retail. I have worked in retail stores growing up. I used to work in a shop called Wave Dancer, as a surf shop, and snowboard and all that stuff. And man, dealing with those kinds of customers is definitely kind of a headache. But when you're talking tattoos, and especially where I've migrated my business to being, and that's just it's kind of the same as what I've done with my boa business as well. You know, I am definitely targeting a different demographic than just tattooing everybody and selling a snake to anybody. You know, I want my demographic, the people that I'm dealing with, the people that I want to sell boas to, I want them to have that value that I have, you know, in my tattoos and in my boa breeding. And you know, I want them to see that. So I'll spend days talking to people about the boas, and I'll spend days tattooing, lots and lots of tattooing on one piece. You know what I mean? So it kind of, you have definitely a totally different customer base, because you're selling a live animal versus doing a piece of artwork for somebody, but they are permanent. And you know, you mess up a permanent piece of artwork, you know, it's messed up, and it's always going to be messed up until somebody fixes it. So you know, when it comes down to it, I definitely take pride in what I do in both businesses. And I'm, you know, pretty, I wouldn't necessarily say strict. I'm not like a super crazy clean freak, and you know, that kind of thing. I'm not at all. But I definitely have, you know, some high standards, and like I was saying, targeting a different demographic. I used to tattoo everything that came through the door, and then I got to the point where I was so busy that I was tattooing every day, all day, making great money. But you know, life is not about making great money. I mean, money is definitely a good thing, and it can help you and help the world go around. But I was not a happy person when I'd go home and have extreme back pain, and you know, not want to work with snakes the next day because I'm sore, you know, or that kind of thing. So it's finding that balance, and so now I'm more targeting people and a clientele base that wants a piece of my artwork, rather than coming in and saying, hey, I want my mom's name and her dates or whatever. You know, if you let me run with it and create you a beautiful piece of artwork, then that's what I'm here to do, rather than just tattoo a design you brought in off of Pinterest. So I
bet you get those questions a lot right there, man.
Well, I used to, because I would leave my door wide open to those people. Right. So, you know, lately I've kind of made it more like, hey, this is more of a private studio. I'm looking to create a piece of artwork for somebody, not just give you a tattoo and send you on your way. I want to create a lifelong friendship with my clients, and you know, I want them to keep coming back, and I want them to send their friends in and their wives and husbands, and you know, and that way my clientele is now more of a community or a family than just a client, just a person that came to get a tattoo.
And do you feel that's pretty similar to how essentially like the community you've established with among your customers in the reptile world?
As well, yes, and going more that direction for sure. I don't just want to sell a boa to somebody, and obviously with the boas that I've been producing and working with, I've spent a lot of my own money, my hard-earned tattoo money, on these boas and building my collection to be the best that it can be. And I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean, one year I spent 27,000 on an import. So like I've really pushed for that because I wanted to have the best stuff. I wanted to have, the best genetics, the next level stuff that people don't know about yet, or when you combine two genes, that it's going to create something that nobody knows about or hasn't seen yet. And so I want to instill that. I definitely want to instill that kind of value in my customer base, so that they know that what they're getting from me isn't just a purple boa, or a boa that could possibly end up not being purple as a 3-year-old or something. That's the whole premise behind the Nebula boa. Right. When I named the Nebula boa, not everybody, there was a lot of people that were all about it and loved it. And then there was a couple other big name breeders that bashed it and said, oh, you shouldn't name a codon with, polygenic thing. And I'm like, well, if I were to market it as a purple IMG, then what are you going to expect? You're going to expect a purple boa that has IMG characteristics. Well, IMG in albinism turns white. So, you can't expect your boa to just be purple and white. So when these IMGs came out, and they were, let me tell you, like, it was like fruit punch, like there was just so many different colors, and all of the nebulas looked totally different to each other. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like a boa that came out and then there were 5 of them that looked this way. You know what I mean? It came out and there was like a confetti of different colors. And I mean, these nebulas have colors that I've never seen before. I've seen many IMG calls at Pete's 10 years ago. Everybody's coming out with call IMGs nowadays, and they're like, oh, these are so cool. But Pete had stuff that was mind-blowing 10 years ago that people never saw. So, I've seen that, and I've seen what they become as adults. A lot of them get really, really white. And, not to say that some of the nebulas, I have 2 nebulas that are kind of getting a little more white, and I have 2 that are crazy colors. So it just depends on the different genetics. And these first round of nebulas are only single dose purple. So if I have a really purple nebula and I get to cross it to one of my best purple females next year, then I'm going to have the real intense colored IMGs that are even more sought after than what the nebulas are now. So, obviously every year we progress and we strive for the next thing. And the nebula is definitely a really cool morph. And I think the one nebula that I created last year, I'm pretty sure that she's a super hypo. A super hypo jungle IMG purple sharp sun glow. So she's just off the charts, and it's just wild to see how different each one can look compared to each other, and then the whole tail thing. So I have this big theory on the purple genetic, and that there's definitely two. I think there's 2 different genetics involved. I think that a litter this year will really help. I have 2 litters cooking that are definitely going to help us dissect and kind of see what's going on, and further the project a little bit more. And then next year we'll hopefully solidify my theory. Between the 2, there's these purple boas that are real purple and drastic purple looking, especially as babies, and they have really orange tails. And more orangey saddles. Up towards the head, they get a little more red, but as adults, man, they're really orange and purple. And then there's these boas that come from the same litters, that these European purple litters and stuff that are popping out. And then some of these other ones have really, really saturated red tails and more of a bluish purple background. And so there's the theory that, oh yeah, there's this blue line and then there's this purple line. Well, no, I don't think that's the case. I think that there's a pastel gene that's involved here, but I think that there are two different looking boas in the end game. Let's strip away the purple and the pasteling, but what's causing the boa to have a red tail versus an orange tail?
Would you say like this is like that work that you're doing right now is kind of the primary focus of your boa breeding at the moment, or is there other boa projects that you're also into?
Oh man, that's just that. I would say that the purple boas are they were my main focus for a little while, and they still are. I definitely am pushing for the craziest blue and purple snakes I can possibly get, for sure. And mixing IMG and then mixing in Paradigm. I mean, I did. My brother and I split a litter. They were actually both the adults were mine, and he was trying to acquire them from me, and so I gave them to him. He bred them, and we had purple jungle paraglows, and we split the 6 of them, and so I've got 2 that are extremely purple that are paraglows, and now I want to throw in the IMG genetic with that and double dose it and really get some wild T positive stuff going on with the sharp genetics. So I definitely have
I'm with you on that, dude. I'm actually cooking a batch of those at the moment.
Yeah,
with one of the purples I got with the purple male that I got from you.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. So that's what I mean, like that. So if you're cooking, yeah, I mean, it would be great to see what that looks like. You know what I mean? And keep pushing that envelope, because there hasn't been a whole lot done with the T positive connection with the sharp stuff. Like, man, there's Paradise and Prodigy, and exactly. It's like too muddy almost that people were too scared to get into it. Like, but I've seen some of the stuff that Jeff Ron's produced that's really cool, and Joel Diaz, I got a beautiful Paradise Motley from him that is just, I mean, an awesome boa. It's the only Paradise I own, but I had to have her when I saw her. Boom, I'll take that snake any day, and so I'm still, I like to think of myself as I am a breeder and all, but I still will pay top dollar for a snake that somebody produces. I bought a lot of snakes from Mike Weitzman. Yep. Michael Roscoe and I have talked about doing a bunch of different stuff, and so definitely a lot on the horizon. I do definitely have some other cool projects going on. I have, like I had mentioned a little while ago about the sunsets. My a good friend of mine that I've done some good business with over the past few years, Jamie Post in Amsterdam, has some beautiful hypo hog and sunset litters, and I've managed to get a couple of them, and so I'm mixing that in with some more Hog Island stuff, some T positive, some desert T positive, because I think that there's some Hog Island or Costa Rica thing going on there. So I have a gravid female there that is going to be some really cool looking babies.
Yeah, I think that's probably, in my opinion, honestly, I think that desert T positive stuff is one of the genes that I think 5 years from now is going to start blowing up.
Yeah, it's very underrated, and only a few guys were. Yep, only a few guys are.
I got some IMG snows that I'm cooking, so we'll see how those end up looking, because I have no idea what that's going to even look like.
Yeah, man, I had a pairing that for an IMG snow litter, but the male just wasn't doing his thing. I think he was just a little young, and we'll try again here in this coming season, and hope for the best. I got a couple. I definitely have some really cool VPI projects going.
And you've started to try to bring a lot more color into the VPI line too, right?
Yeah, well, and that's a really big, I would say, a milestone or an accomplishment that I had this year with that Red Panther Pink Panther crossing. The Pink Panther that I had came from Mike Weitzman, which I believe came from Doug Morris, which came from straight from Tracy and Dave from VPI. So right. this snake was so pink as a baby, and then it turned black because she was IMG, but like beautiful pink with black background baby. And then the dad was straight from Kyle Frost, and he said it was his best litter. I mean, best male of the litter, and he ended up proving jungle. So I really I got a little lucky, with the jungle gene flopping in there, and that snake as an adult is one of my best snakes in my collection. I gotta say, Kyle made some amazing animals. Thomas Kyle will probably agree with that. And
I definitely think he would.
So, but here's the thing, with this whole Red Panther, I wish that somebody could come out and really give a great definition of what it is, because I talked to Jeff, who really is kind of the godfather of the Red Panther line, because supposedly his monster tail female was the mom that was then bred, which she's a pastel dream monster tail, right. and then bred to a red pastel, which then created this really awesome red saddled, red sided Red Panther lineage, which I don't know if that's the same thing that Kyle had or not. I think it is, and I think that Manny Frade was the one that created that cross. So I want to definitely dig a little bit deeper, but I mean, man, now we got three pastel genetics in this litter that I just had then. So I have Pastel Dream, Pink Panther, and Red Panther, and then there's potentially Monster Tail floating around in there, which is also something that I want to note, is that the mom, the female, had, and I gotta say this, they are 4 months apart. The male is 4 months younger than the female, and they're the same size.
Wow.
Yeah, this male is just a monster that I got from Kyle. And he's got these big circles in his saddles that really remind me of what the monster tails look like. And then half the litter, she had 15 perfectly healthy babies. It was her first litter. I was so shocked when she had them. It was like, that feeling when you have babies, man. I mean, it's just totally. And then to have a perfect litter with no slugs, and then I held up the two IMG visuals that I made that are just, I just love them so much. I couldn't be happier with the way that they turned out. But the female is double the size of the male, and I just can't figure out why. Like half the litter was big and half the litter was smaller, and I just don't know if that's maybe the monster tail gene at play, or not. I don't know. My sharp litter, my two sharp litters that I had this year were both smaller sized babies. Like these couple VPIs that came out were double the size of the rest of these babies. It's wild. So I can't explain it. I don't know what it is. I've not really seen that before. So it's exciting, territory to go into here. And just the biggest snake out of that litter is the female. And she's just an unbelievable IMG, you're gonna have to see her one day, man. That's all I gotta say. It's just wild to see the colors that are in this boa and to watch her grow.
I can tell you that whatever IMGs you're utilizing, the IMGs that I got from you, man, those guys are they are the darkest IMGs that I own, and I have.
Well, and I do want to say something about that, because there is a lot of controversy out there on the quality of the IMG genetic, and everybody wants to say what they think they know, but I mean, I worked for the guy that started it and had hundreds of them. I mean, we're not talking just a handful of them, hundreds, probably over 1,000 IMGs.
Oh, that's insane.
Yeah. So, and that included the original female. When I was working there, she was still there, and I don't think he hadn't bred her in a year, but she had a huge 67 or 69 litter monster snake, dude. I mean, 13 foot, huge, 10 inches around, just a monster animal. The IMG gene is a very, very strong genetic, and this female was jet black. So the majority of the snakes in Pete's facility, were really black. And until you started putting in hypo and super hypo or jungle or motley and these other genetics, did you start seeing some of the colors staying. And so I will never ever tell somebody that their IMG is poor quality because it's not getting super jet black. Like, that does not define how good your IMG is, because that same IMG will kick out 50% of the litter in its offspring, and some of them will be jet black. That is a guarantee every single time. So,
and one thing I want to bring up to note on that, dude, is that just because let's call it a particular line of IMG, even though we know there's one originating line, but now with all the outcrossings that have gone on through the years and everything else, like I said, I probably have, so I got some IMG babies from you, and I think I have like 4 others that are about the same size, and the ones I got from you are like the blackest of the black, right? And
yeah,
they're still, they're babies still. They're young ones. They're yearlings, I think, right? And that being said, those are going to be awesome, but for me, that serves as a very specific ingredient. The ones that aren't as dark, now my plans with those is now I can start utilizing them on projects that I want to infuse color into, but not necessarily create an overpowering of color. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even the quote unquote shittier quality IMGs, I think, still have a function in the hobby if leveraged correct. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's that's definitely,
it's like painting with different shades of red, right? You can leverage it for different projects, right? It
is definitely, like I said, that with that shittier IMG, I don't want to say shittier, but like less black. It's not, it's definitely not a lower quality IMG. It is the same quality. It's just less black, and it has a genetic that's fighting against the black in there. So, the boas that you have from me, at least the one IMG is pos head anery. So there may be anery genetic floating in there that's creating it to be more dark black.
Right.
There's some that. There is, I think, one IMG that I sold that ended up being jungle because it didn't go all the way black. So it's got like circles on its back that are nice and lighter, and hasn't gone super black. So it really just depends on the other genes that you're mixing in there, not necessarily the IMG gene that you have. Yeah, it's definitely about the concoction of genes that you have in there, and that could even include polygenic pastel traits and stuff. So, the pastel traits that are at play, could mess with how dark your scales are going to end up getting. So, yep, it's a wild thing, and I definitely am keeping on, pushing on to the next level. I've got some other cool projects. I have some Honduran fire belly and Mandarin belly from France.
Right.
So I definitely dabbled in that a little bit just to have some of that flavor, whatever that may be, because there's a lot of stuff coming around and a lot of different morphs popping out, and you just never know what something's going to be. So when a good deal pops up, it's not a bad idea to invest. So I definitely like doing that. I have invested with Kevin Hasley from the UK with some really cool animals. He's doing some cool Inca paradigm stuff. So I have this unbelievable female from him that I've been raising. I mean, unbelievable. If there is a super Inca, she's probably it, because she's just flawless. I mean, purely symmetrical, her whole body and perfect pattern. I can't even believe he sold her to me, honestly, because she's just that amazing. Like if she was my snake, I would not have even shown anybody. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm definitely pushing for some cool stuff. I've got some fire genetics. I had a really awesome pairing this year that was fire Marin, sharp sunglow, jungle craziness, but didn't take. So the female's a little young. She's 3.5, so she's just right there where I definitely wanted to introduce the male and see if she would do, but I don't think she was quite ready. So I took them out after a couple months and fed them both, and they're back to being raised up a little bit more, and we'll try again next year.
Awesome, man. So let's talk about a little bit about some lessons learned when you set up both your tattoo business and your reptile business. What are some of those lessons that you want to kind of pass down to people considering opening up their own businesses?
You mean like lessons as a business owner or lessons in each particular business?
As a business owner, and then maybe within each one of
within
those
each.
Yeah.
Well, so as a business owner, I'd say the biggest life lesson is to just not hold back. If you're gonna go for something, don't half-ass it. You know what I mean? Now running businesses for me is really kind of a piece of cake, and I definitely enjoy being in business for myself. But you can't be afraid to ask questions and talk to people that are business owners and do things like that. There's so much information out there, and you just got to be willing to go ask. The worst that you could do is get shut down. If you're not willing to talk to people about their businesses or how to do this and how to do that, then you have too much pride, and you're never going to learn the right way. So, and that's to say, I've been tattooing for 10 years, and I still have questions that I'll ask my old mentor, and things like that. Not as much now, but there's still stuff that'll pop up, and I'll be like, hey, have you seen this before? Or that kind of thing. Or if I got to hit up Mike Roscoe or Jeremy or somebody about a boa question, I have no shame in asking somebody. Just the other day I was on the phone with Thomas Cobb. I had a boa that was real fat and squishy, and I wasn't sure why it was like that. It was one of the imports I got in, and it's from the milk bellies in baby rats. If you give rats too small or mice too small, then some boas can't digest that milk, and they'll get real fat and pudgy, and they'll eventually kill them. Yeah. So I have no problem asking for advice or things like that, because that's only going to help you succeed. It's not going to make you look weak or anything like that. And if they want to think you're weak, then let them think you're weak. You know what I mean? I that's one mistake that I definitely made in the boa world was standing up for myself, which you don't really have to do. If your product is quality, which I definitely take pride in my tattoos and push for the best quality tattoo I can possibly give somebody. And the same thing goes for the snakes. So, when you're producing quality stuff and you have good standards and practices, you let that stuff speak for itself. You don't have to get on Facebook and fight somebody, because they want to bash you. That was a big lesson that I learned. And I believe it or not, when I had that happen on Facebook a couple years back, the whole Nebula spiel that went down, I definitely got some positive feedback from it, but there was also negative feedback from it, and people saying that I kind of look like an asshole, and I don't want to ever project that. I don't want people to ever think that I am an asshole, or that I have any kind of money, elitism, whatever. I mean, yeah, I want to make good money, and I want people to have value in the product that I'm selling. Product, or I shouldn't say product, because it's a live animal, and that'll definitely piss some people off. But I want people to know that I've invested the money, into my collection and into my facility. I pay a mortgage on my facility, and it's just for my businesses. I don't live here. I even built a rock climbing room in the one room because I want to be able to work out from this facility as well. You know what I mean? And not have to pay a gym membership and do all that when I have my own business. You know what I mean?
I'm with you.
So it's good. I definitely learned a lot. I actually, the one guy that was ripping me, he was ripping Del Bono too, and Del Bono's worked hard and is a very successful businessman too. So,
and he's also one of the most respected boa guys out there.
yeah, and so for somebody to be knocking me and him is like, come on, man. And so I called him up right away. I was like, what do I even say to this? He's like, dude, just leave it alone. Don't even worry about it. Like,
Rich is like an old veteran, man. He'll guide you right. Nothing really gets to him, man. That's why I love that guy. He's one of the best people in the industry.
And honestly, that's how you got to be, man. You can't, in both industries, tattooing and snakes, you're gonna have idiot asshole customers and other tattoo artists who have monster egos. Like, there are tattoo artists that have egos that are way bigger than snake guy egos. So, right. It's definitely a lot to deal with. But I keep it private now, man. I do tattoo at a bunch of different conventions when I can get them in. I like to go to Colorado's convention. They have a real clean convention, and I like to go to.
Let me know next time. I'll go up there, get inked by you, dude.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I usually book them out. I like to set them up and have people lined up and booked out so that I know that I'm going to be at least paying for my trip and not underwater. But no, the last Colorado one was very successful, and I got to hang out with a lot of good friends and tattoo some of my friends that I lived with 10 years ago out there, and it's cool. I want to experience more of that. I want to travel more. I want to tattoo in other states, even in other countries. My wife and I love music, and we love going to concerts and taking our kids. And in December, we go down. One of our favorite reggae bands, Slightly Stupid, they put on a huge, pretty high class festival at the Hard Rock in Mexico. And dude, it's one of the best vacations. I
bet, dude.
It's 4 days of music and all, nice people, and it's just like an escape from reality, and you don't have to worry about nothing. You just go and listen to good music and hang out with your friends, and it's all good people. All the bands, they don't treat you like they're rock stars. They hang out with you, and and that's the way I like to be. I don't like hanging out with other tattoo artists that are too good, that are always posting selfies and trying to do things like that. It's just not my thing. I want to keep it private, keep it quality, keep it top shelf, you know what I mean? And keep rolling.
Awesome, man. So, dude, what do you think the future is in the hobby itself? So what are some of those things that you're looking forward to in, say, the next 5 to 10 years that you think are really going to drive the boa industry forward?
Man, it's really hard to say right now with the way that things are. with where we are at in this trying time, I honestly don't know, because when I look back to 2007, 2008, I actually ended up getting rid of a lot of boas back then because the economy was so bad and people weren't buying snakes and people weren't giving a shit what you had. I had these sunset boas that were blue and green and like ridiculously awesome looking snakes, and just nobody wanted them. I couldn't even get $400 or $500 for them.
Wow.
Because the time was so tough, and so who knows? I mean, we're gonna have to really see how we recover from all of this devastation that's happening, and get through all this first. But I think that if we can keep, it's not necessarily affecting me in a bad way. I definitely had to push I already had to push my tattoo appointments out because I broke my collarbone. So I'm already off of work for this month, but it didn't stop me from getting in the boa room, and and it's not. I'm still currently snapping photos as much as possible, and getting people excited for my few litters that are coming up, and that's kind of what it's all about, in building those relationships. I'm talking to guys right now, that I sold boas to, and they're really interested in the new projects that are coming, and they know, what I got value wise in the snakes and what I've put into it, so they don't have any problem investing good money. I see that a lot on social media, where I'll post a picture of a snake, and excuse me, and somebody will, say like, oh man, that, I bet that one's, way out of my price range. And, and I'm like, it just depends. Like, it could be out of your price range. Like, a lot of my tattoos are out of people's price range too, but I work with them, and we do it over time. And, we take our time doing it. And, we, let me grab a drink of water real quick. Yeah. When people, say something like that, like, oh man, that's way out of my price range. I'm not necessarily shying away from that customer, because they may be a customer in the future.
Right.
So I don't want to be like, oh man, don't be coming in here with those comments or anything like that, because, and this is something I've learned as I grow and talking to other guys like Michael Roscoe. He's been in the business forever and knows how to run a great business. And, that person may become your client in 2 or 3 years when you have something that is really intriguing, and then they have more money, they got a better job, or, you don't want to burn those bridges. And I've definitely tried to not let money drive what I'm doing. It is a business, and I have a real good passion for it. Same with the tattooing. But at the end of the day, I still have to make a living, and I still have to, do what I think is right. And, if I spent $3,000 on one of the parents or whatever, then I have no issue charging that for a baby. You know what I mean? And I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel like I'm like that person is missing out because they can't afford $3,000 snake. Save up or talk to me about a payment plan. Like, I'm always easy to work with, because I know that people have been good to me, and I've been able to get some really rare boas and some cool genetics because someone allowed me to do a 6-month payment plan, or something like that. Same thing with the bonsai pots, man. I one of my favorite pots is like ridiculously expensive, and I could have definitely never paid straight up for it. But it's one of my most prized possessions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm with you, dude. That's pretty awesome. So, kind of to wrap this up, let's talk a little bit about the Sharp Purple gene. So, being that you are probably one of the foremost guys in the States working with Sharp Purples, give us a little bit of a background about the European Sharp Purple gene, and kind of let's go into how you decided to start going down the road of the Nebula Boa and kind of defining the Nebula Boa. But yeah, let's start with giving the listeners kind of some insight about the Sharp Purple gene and how you found out about it.
Oh man, so I found out about it because I started seeing some of the high contrast sharps popping up. I had actually bought one back in 2013. I got a high contrast male, and man, was he beautiful. I mean, even as a baby, his tail was like super dark maroon. It was a really, really beautiful animal, and I never actually ever bred him. Because by the time he was breeding age, I had snakes that were, much more colorful, not just high contrast, but really purple and red and, things like that. So I didn't really honestly need him. It kind of stunk because I raised him for 3 years before I sold him, but I never bred him before I got rid of him. So, right. But I started perusing the import options, and I used to export for Pete all the time, and so I knew that I could do it, and it just required some legwork and some extra money. Importing's not cheap, and to do it the right way, to have CITES permits, and really not just ship them in a box, and hope that they don't get busted, that, because there is definitely a lot of that going on. But, so I went and got my license through Fish and Game, and, built a good relationship with the wildlife, the Fish and Wildlife, or Fish and Game officer down at the airport. And yeah. I would have an import or two every single year since 2014, was my first import. And then, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so maybe talk a little bit about the intricacies of what it takes to kind of import a boa and some of the things.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, it's a risky thing. You're trusting someone there until you're in it where you're going over to different shows over there, or you've built a relationship with somebody and you know them firsthand. Like Mike Roscoe, he goes over and he does stuff over there and deals with people over there. Bob Clark, there's a lot of guys that do a lot of international business. I don't. I'm pretty domestic, and I will ship a boa across the seas and export. But I really my main focus was to import these and raise them up and watch them grow and see how they do. I'd get rid of a few of them here and there along the way. Some that I didn't want to keep, or if I had too many, that would just like, man, I'm a little overwhelmed. I have too many boas right now. I would offload a couple of them, but I wasn't importing to sell or to flip them. When we definitely had some of that going on, and then people were like, "Oh man, this purple gene's lame," because a lot of these boas are fading or they're not really purple when they get them, and there was a lot of that going on. So then I kind of had to even drop back a little further because I didn't want to be in that limelight where somebody's like, "Oh yeah, he's working with the purples," but what's this whole purple gene about? I wanted to wait until I had solid purples on the ground that I produced, right. That kind of deal, and then take it a step even further and go to the nebula. It just so happened that I had that nebula litter before having this purple gene, broken down, and that's why I went with the nebula name instead of calling it the whole IMG purple like we talked about earlier. Right. Because I don't want people to think that they're going to buy a nebula from me at $7,000 or whatever price tag we agree on, and then it not be purple. Like that would be devastating if 4 years down the road you got this big female and she's got some purple in her and some flecks and some stuff like that, but not a solid purple snake like a lot of people would attach with that name, purple. You know what I mean? Right. So it's a very loose pastel gene right now because there is a lot of other colors mixed in. There's red and orange and other things that are coming through. And I think that's what happens when you have a snake that is real purple as a baby and fades to nothing or fades to orange. It's because that other pastel gene took over. So will that purple snake still produce more purple babies? Yeah, it definitely will. So, having a low end purple isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's one of the things that I, kind of had told my brother when my older brother got a purple from me and has made a litter or two that has some pretty cool purples popping out. There's not a ton of them, but they're still popping out, even though that, yep. Right. So, I think that's something to take note of is that, these polygenic traits, just like red rum, you could have a red rum that's not super orange or red, but he'll create a baby that could be, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's just giving the boas time to kind of do their thing. And if you strike out, you strike out, at least you went down swinging. You didn't hold back. You gave that snake the chance. And, that's kind of the cool thing about it is it's kind of like chemistry, you're putting these two chemicals together and creating a concoction. And, I really enjoy that side of it. I really enjoy getting some of my tattoo clients that are interested to see them. I have a lot of people that I definitely don't even tell them that their snake is upstairs. And that may even deter some people in the future from getting tattooed. I don't know. But I'm like, look, they will not travel downstairs to where it's colder. Trust me. But yeah, so it's cool. I'm definitely going to keep pushing this purple envelope. I have, like I was saying, the two litters that I have cooking right now are probably my two most anticipated litters for a while. The one mom is the mom of the nebulas from 2018. I gave her the year off last year. She had 24 perfectly healthy babies, her first litter. So I'm hoping for a good 30 maybe this time. Yeah. And I bred her with a very similar male to what she is. She's a very nice purple. He's actually a nicer version of her even. So he may even be a double dose purple already because he's very, very saturated. Both of his parents in Czech were purple sunglows. So it's very, very possible that he is, a quote unquote double dose,
Right.
which is what I'm trying to produce here with both of these litters. But both litters are two totally different looking animals. You know what I mean? Both females look different from each other, and both males look completely different. So it's going to be exciting to see what these two do. If an orange tail snake pops out of the red tail litter, and a red tail snake pops out of the orange tail litter, then I might abandon the project. I really don't. At that point, I don't know.
So what do you think is the future of this gene and like this project and the future of kind of the purple?
Well, I'm hoping to dissect it more. If what I'm doing, ends up being, coming true or coming to fruition or whatever, I think that I'll dissect it even further. I'll take it back to, because I bred sunglow to sunglow and sunglow to sunglow, and there's definitely some jungle floating around in there. So I think both males are jungle and both females aren't. But I think that if my hypothesis goes the way that I want it to, then I have albinos that are going to be ready next year, and that are siblings to these snakes that I'm breeding. So same gene pool, and then I'm going to take and go to albinism and maybe even throw in like an IMG het purple that's not a visual, so that then I get double dose normal snakes, or double dose jungle that's het for sharp. A double dose bluish purple jungle in normalcy could be unbelievable. Yeah. It could be, right. We've not seen it yet. It's not been produced, and if it has, nobody's shown it off yet. So that's what's going to be really cool about this is that every year we get to do something that's a little bit different than the year before. I didn't do a nebula breeding this year because I didn't need to. I'd rather dissect these two genes or this purple gene and find out what's really going on before making more of the nebula when I don't really know what's going on with the nebula. I just know that it's a killer IMG visual, T negative. Right. Which is until recently, you haven't seen a lot of those really wicked looking T negative IMGs.
No, absolutely, man. So let me ask you this, dude. Based on kind of everything that we're talking about within this purple gene, do you think as it becomes more prolific within the United States, it's going to begin changing the sharp market here like it has in Europe?
Most definitely. And that has been something that I wanted to kind of target. I wanted to that's been a kind of a goal of mine. As you were saying, like what got me into wanting to breed boas and stuff. I've seen all of the amazing calls under the sun, and I just knew that there was something about this sharp gene that could definitely be, looked into a lot further and taken a lot further. And so I think that the sharp genetic is going to be something that is like the VPI genetic now, because there's so much uncharted territory with the sharp genetics, with the paradise and the paradigm. I think that can be pushed so much further, especially seeing what these guys are doing over in Europe with it. And Joel Diaz with that paradise I got from him. I mean, he had an unbelievable litter of Pastel Dream, Paradise, Jungles, and Motleys. And then if I can throw in IMG and purple and blue and whatever, into that and really make these just the sky's the limit. We're just going to keep rolling with these and having fun doing it. That's the biggest thing that I think so many people miss about all this, is that it's supposed to just be fun. Like, yeah, there's money involved and there's things like that, but like, if you're not working hard for something, then what the hell are you doing? You know what I mean?
Amen
so,
to that, dude.
Right. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're not working hard for it, then what the hell are you doing? That's my motto. If I'm bow hunting, I'm putting my whole heart into it. You know what I mean? And so there's something to be said about that. I think that that reflects in my tattoos and reflects in my boas. And people that have been here to see the shop and the facility, see my boas in person. It's a totally different thing than just seeing what some people see online and in my Instagram and when you hold these snakes in your hand and like see all the crazy colors and stuff. I mean, you have some of them, so it's really cool, and it's only just the beginning, which is really, really fun. I'm 32, and I plan to keep doing this for a long time. I'm dialing back my tattooing. Definitely, I'm only going to be doing tattooing probably 3-4 days a week instead of 5-6 days a week like I was doing. And focusing more on boas and having fun with the kids.
Awesome, man. Well, on that note, guys, we are going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hit the Dirty Dozen.
The Dirty Dozen.
All right, guys, we're back, and it's time for the Dirty Dozen. So, Tyler, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you 12 questions. Just give me a short answer to all of them, or you can elaborate if you want. But, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. All right, number one, what is the size of your current collection?
Right now, I'm sitting at about 142 boas and 2 ball pythons. I definitely didn't mean to, have the balls, but I started getting into them a little bit and did some breeding with my brother, and there's just a couple that I have that are kind of pets now, so it's cool.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right, man. Number 2, husbandry question. Are you a frozen thawed or live guy, and what's your bedding choice?
I'm frozen thawed, especially for larger boas. Getting live rats is definitely not nearly as easy as frozen thawed. So, and then I happen to have Ralph Davis in my backyard. He's a good friend of mine as well, and when I need live for the babies and things like that, he hooks it up. I have all of my boas on paper and construction, like craft cardboard paper. Yep. And then during breeding, once the female's in her last month, I will put aspen shavings on the non-heated side. So she will 9 times out of 10 lay the babies in that, and it's just way easier for cleanup. And I think females definitely like to make their bed, so yeah, they'll spend time doing that, and I think that they really enjoy. They like to have the bedding in there than trashed up paper. Right. So, yep.
All right, number 3. What's your favorite morph or locality?
Probably the more blue scale in the sharps, the ones that are really more of that amazing blue tone. They're purples per se, but there's a fight between the lighter tones that really start looking more blue, and I like that a lot. And the VPI IMG that I created, those 2 are just unreal.
All right, man. Number 4. What is the most overrated morph out there?
Without stepping on anybody's toes or discrediting anything, I want to say that the Princess Diamond's definitely pretty overrated. I know it's definitely come down in price quite a bit, but I've seen many of them, and Jeremy's a good friend of mine. I definitely don't knock what he's got going on. I absolutely love the Fire gene. I think Fire and Purple is going to do some incredible shit. Okay. But the super form, if you breed a really crazy Fire Purple to a really crazy Fire Purple, you're going to get a white snake. So I don't know if that's 100% true, but
maybe you'll get a snake that glows in the dark. Who knows?
You never know. You might get not until you try. So, but that's what I would say the most overrated one has been, because people want that white, and I don't think it's that cool.
All right, man. Number 5. What's the most underrated morph?
Sharp T positive, the BWC or Paradigm, and things like that. I think that there's a lot to explore there. I think that a lot of people really love VPI because it's been exploited. Once the sharp stuff really gets out there, I think people will see that the sharp T positive will definitely rival, what people have done with the VPI.
All right. Number 6. What's your favorite part of the hobby?
Genetics. I really like mashing genetics together. That's that creating something beautiful, by putting two snakes together is really cool. I think that's probably my favorite part, is seeing what you can create. It's kind of like tattooing, from creating something from nothing, but that's my favorite part, the genetics.
Number 7, what's the worst part of the hobby?
Cleaning big girls' cages.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, man, it's like, geez, how did that come out of you?
Yeah, dude, I was actually doing a podcast with Thomas Cobb and Sergio, and right next to my head, dude, one of my big, I have a couple, legitimately, that are bordering, that have broken that 10-foot plane and are now maybe closer to 12, right? One of them
Yeah, it's like a horse.
Right, yeah, dude, one of them took a dump right in the middle of the podcasting. I just kind of had to hold my breath the whole time. It was
brutal.
Man. Number 8, do you keep any other species, and if so, why?
No, I'm focusing mainly on red tails. I do definitely have a couple other locales, the Honduran firebelly, and I have a longicauda, nice. And some Hog Island, and stuff that I want to mix in along the way, just to spice things up a little bit. I think that those could be some fun projects in the future if you can get them to breed. I know there's a lot of people that don't like muddying up the lines and crossing BCC with BCI and things like that. But let me tell you, one of my favorite snakes, she passed away a few years ago, but she was pretty old. She was produced by Pete in 2005, 2006, and which she really wasn't that old. She just ended up passing away. I bred her and bred her and bred her, and she never produced for me, and it was just the weirdest thing. But she was the most gorgeous boa that I had for a long time. I actually got her from a guy out in California, and he got her straight from Pete, and she was a call albino, but she was like over 50% Argentine. So wow. Her whole body was like saturated pink, and that was inside the saddles, like in the interior and on their sidewalls. Her saddles were like a really cool, like yellowy green color, and you could just see that wild Argentine coming through her. Her head was definitely the Argentine shape, and she was huge. So I think that there's something to be said about that. Like, a T-negative Argentine would be really cool. I know there's some guys doing that, but yeah, mixing in some locale. I don't think that there's anything wrong there. There's some purists that would say there is, but
yeah, I think it's cool. I'll be honest. I think my favorite bow of all time was, I used to have actually a call that was 50% Suriname. And
yeah.
Popped.
Yeah, awesome, real red, dude. Real intense. And that's what I think probably has been done with some of the purple. I think the purple stuff has definitely been crossed with some of the other, maybe Guyana. Guyanas can be real purple. Maybe that's been mixed in a little bit over there in Europe, and that's where we're seeing some of these real saturated colors coming from.
Yep. All right, man. Number 9. What's a common misconception about you?
I'd say two. There's probably two things. I have dreadlocks. If you met me in person, I have like 3-foot dreadlocks, and I think that a lot of people would think that I'm just some stoner, but although I definitely do, I'm 100% advocate for marijuana and what it can do for everybody. I'm not just some stoner that sits and smokes weed all day. So that's definitely a misconception. But I think in the boa business, a misconception would be that I'm newer to breeding. I'm newer to breeding on my own, you could say. Like I said, my first litter was 2016. So that definitely is a pretty new breeder on your own. But I worked with Pete Call. I was there for many breedings and paired a lot of stuff up, and have a lot of experience doing it. So, newer to being my own business and being my own breeder, yeah. But I've been doing this for the past 10 years. So,
yeah, man. So let's go to number 10. What makes you say, what was I thinking when you look back at your time in the hobby?
When I would say this last year when I had like 160 babies or 160 boas total, not babies, but 160 mouths to feed along with my 2 kids and horses and all the other, we got 3 dogs, and it's just, it's crazy, and it all just adds up. And I definitely was like, what the hell was I thinking doing all this, like getting this far in, and then still having more snakes coming from Europe and whatever. Like, so that's cool.
All right, man. Number 11. What's one tip you would give the new people looking to invest in boas?
I would say do your research and don't be afraid to pay good money for quality genetics. There's definitely good deals to be had. I'm a deal finder. I definitely scour people's collections and stuff for good deals. Even to the point where I've had breeders back out on deals with me because I picked the best boa out of the litter, and a month later they realized that was the best boa and they wanted to keep it. So, there's definitely something to be said there. But I would say try, if you don't know if somebody's gonna sell you that boa until you try.
Right.
So definitely do your research about the breeders. It's just like getting a tattoo. You don't do your research about the tattoo artist, you could definitely wind up with something you're going to regret. Yeah. So I always tell people to look at portfolios, look at their work before you get tattooed, look at the boas before you buy a boa from them, look at their husbandry, their practices, or at least maybe reach out to somebody that you see that bought a boa from them. Talk about your experiences. It can't hurt to talk to people. You know what I mean?
Yep. And then final question, man. Any shout outs you want to throw out there?
Man, just some of the guys out there that I'm good friends with that are a good inspiration and good advice. Michael Roscoe gives me good advice a lot about business and his dealings. He's a very informative guy. Him and I talk quite a bit. So definitely a shout out to him. And yeah, shout out to my wife, man. Without my wife, I wouldn't be doing any of this shit.
Yeah.
So she's the one that's taking care of the kids and working hard and makes it so that I can live my dream.
All right, guys. Well, that wraps it up for today. Tyler, tell the people out there where they can see your animals and learn more about you and your tattoo business.
Well, I'm on all the social media outlets except for Twitter. I'm working on that. I haven't quite decided to cross over there, but I have Instagram and Facebook. You can find both Chroma Constrictors there, and you can also find Burn Slow Studios. And then I have my own personal accounts as well. So any of those outlets, I'm always looking to talk to people and educate people on stuff and get them interested in the hobby of boas. And yeah, I have actually tattooed quite a few guys that buy boas from me as well. So when I can do both, I've been trying to get Frank Martin to let me give him a boa tattoo for the longest time. We had it scheduled, but he lives about 3 hours away. So it was,
He's up north, right?
He's in Jersey, like middle of Jersey. And so I passed through his place to go to the beach convention that I tattoo at. And so I actually stopped at his place a couple times and picked up some boas and stuff. But I'm itching to give him his OGN or Arthristic boa tattoo. So we'll see if that works out. But yeah, if anybody wants to hit me up about designing a custom tattoo, or I'm even working on some logos for people now while I'm down, doing some hand-drawn logos for their boa businesses and things like that. So I can do whatever. You want me to do a custom painting for you, I can do it. And I would have fun doing it. So don't hesitate to hit me up.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for listening. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Well, guys, that was probably my favorite episode thus far, despite some of the technical challenges that I had with my mic on my end. Thanks to Tyler for joining us today. Join us on our next episode as we speak to one of my favorite people in the entire industry, Michael Roscoe of the Reptile Shop. We're going to chat about the opening of his retail shop, get his tips on successfully vending at reptile shows, and of course, we're going to cover that famous TNS gene. Thanks for joining us today, guys. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Do us a favor. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and YouTube. Until next time, grow 'em slow.